Good afternoon. It's Mohan here with the Boomerang Day Trader, and today we're looking at a chart of 10-day sessions on the ZB contract for December, which is the 30-year bond futures contract. Very exciting contract to trade with Boomerang, and one that we can recommend for traders who are somewhat experienced with the bonds. It's a little bit different of a market, but it's something that's definitely worth learning to trade on Boomerang. It trades in 1/32 of a point, and each 32nd of a point is worth $31.25. And so the ticks are numbered through 31, and then on the 32nd tick they change over to the new handle. So with that in mind, before we get started, just understand the risk disclosure that futures trading is very high risk. Only use risk capital, and realize that all the signals I'm showing you here, although they occurred in real time, and the signal lines on the signal, the dots on the signal line are exact and will be sitting on that line historically for forever virtually, and because that price did print there at that time. So just keep that in mind, but we have to report these as hypothetical trades. And soon when you trade them in your own account, then they won't be hypothetical anymore. So let's get started here. Now again, it's 10 sessions here, and the starting session is at approximately 5:27. This was October 11th, 2016. So the way it works with Boomerang Day Trader, like all of ours, we use a standard 450 tick chart. That's our default chart amount for the contracts. And it's the same for the 30-year Treasury bond, nothing to change there. And the way it works is we look for, these are called the dynamic trend bands here. This magenta colored line here that's dotted and dashed, that's a bearish dynamic trend band number 1, and a bearish dynamic trend band number 2, which is the solid color one. So what we're looking for is we're looking for a trade channel to open up here, either a buy trade channel or a sell trade channel, and it's marked and alarmed by this arrow here. When the channel opens, an alarm will go off, and there's a selection of various sounds you can use for that. And we wait for the candle to close. When that in this case, I'm going to use a sell example for the first trade of this day on 10:20 or 10:11. So you have a tick counter down here, so it'll show you exactly when that candle is going to use up all the 450 ticks and close. Once that locks down, then you start looking for a trade. Well, you'll be knowing once it gets ready to open up, you're going to start looking and being very involved in the market, generally looking at the far right side of the chart for the price marker bar to merge into the signal line bar. This is the price marker here. This is the signal line. When they're coming together here, they'll merge together. That's generally where you want to go up and hit your buy at the market, sell at the market. In fact, you got a chart trader right here. On Boomerang, we only use buy at the market, sell the market, but you can put on a bracket and track that and pull it right up to the signal line, so as the prices are moving, they can come back and hit that exact signal line and knock out the limit order. Usually, though, I just prefer the market orders, but if you're an expert at bonds, you may want to tighten that up and try to work limit orders on these entries. So the way it works is so simple. You have a new sell channel opening up. It's shaded here. It changes to the green color on the upside, which is the buy channel. And you're looking for the dynamic trend bands to either cross exactly like they are here or to match color. One of those two conditions, or both in this case, but normally one's going to happen before the other. Or like here, they're kind of working in sync to change color and cross. Now, what I've got here is relatively new. These two yellow lines here, orange lines, are actually orange. It's a brand new filter called the Boomerang filter that I put on, and it's just because, as we all know, these markets have whipsaw and stuff in them. So these filters I developed after researching, and I just added them about a week ago to Boomerang. We're using that in our live trading room, but you can order those from me just by giving me a call. I'll tell you what they are. You can put those on. I'll have those soon available to send to you. But for now, not to worry. You just watch the filters. So we watch for the setup on the trade here, right? We have the dot. There's going to be 6 pullbacks to the signal line after the channel closes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. After this, they may pull back the sig line here, but there will no dot will appear. It's only up to 6, and that's where we want to try and nail our trade somewhere within those 6 candles. So here on the 30-year bonds, they're starting to move lower, and what we use for the bonds is a 5-tick. It is a very heavy scalping market. Sure, they trend like every market, the crude oil and the NAS, but we're just scalpers in Boomerang Day Trader, and we go in there and we're looking for 5 ticks on the ZB, and we're looking for an 8-tick stop, so everything's pretty tight, and most of the trades pan out, as you'll see in a minute. So generally you don't have to worry that much about the stop, but it is tight, so it's in proportion to the amount of ticks we're taking. So just so you get an idea, 5 ticks times $31.25 is going to give you $156.25 per trade per contract. So if you're trading 2 contracts, for example, that's $312 for each one of those moves. So as we get started here, we're watching for a trade now. So we're watching for the dynamic trend bands to match, and we're watching for the filter to be either flat and prices ideally below the dash line main filter, and for the filter up here, the second filter, which is part of the whole system. You have to look at it as a whole. We look for that to be flat. In other words, not sloping up against the trade, and you'll see that in a second on our next trade. So we got the filters nice and flat lined up, prices pulling below them. The dynamic trend bands match colors, so you're going to get short here at 64.01, and they come down for 5 ticks down in here, and you're all set with the 5-tick move there. No pressure on the stop from the entry. So now we're just waiting for the next trade. A buy channel opens up, so we go on high alert to watch for a trade. We're watching our filters, and you can see this is sloping down here, so we're waiting for that to flatten. And you can tell just by putting your cursor up on it, you can see immediately where it's flat. And if I put it here, you see it's not quite flat. Wait till it's kind of flattened out. Matching dynamic trend bands here above the main filter here. There's your pullback to the sig line there at 64 and 05. And we're looking for 05 to run to 10. There it is for 5 ticks there. And again, no pressure on the 8-tick stop. And the market runs up. That's just the way it goes. That's when we're scalping, you got to expect that the markets are going to run sometimes. We don't care. We're just looking to grab that $300 or so on the 2 contracts. If you're going to trade 2, if you're going to trade 10, then you got a lot more. That's for sure. If you got a new trade setup coming in here, again, we're watching for the dynamic trend bands after the channel. First, the candle closes on the new sell channel, and we start watching. We're watching the filters. Okay, we got a flat filter up on the top, the thinner one, and then down here we're just looking for price that trade generally at or below this orange line here, and we got a crossover. Right? We got a crossover right here, and I think the market's probably closed here. I'm just noticing that here. But this is a good example of a trade. Honestly, it did not set up. There was no setup here. It didn't happen because of the setup on the dynamic trend bands. So on that particular day, we had 2 winning trades on the ZB futures. So we move to the next day now. And as we get into the bond opening time right around, I believe in this area around 5 o'clock Pacific time, 5:15, we're watching now for the market to get cooking. And we're watching, same thing, watching for the dynamic trend bands to cross over or match color. Now here's an exact crossover here, and we've got a flattening filter here, and they're trading above. Now this filter's sloping down a little, so it's going to be a little riskier trade, but you just have to determine that. You'll get good at using Boomerang, but we do have a crossover, and those are usually going to pan out. So the pullback to the sig line comes right in here at 31, and 31 shoots up to 04 for exactly 5 ticks on that. You see that? And again, though, there is a little bit of pressure on that trade. I'm not sure if they dipped down lower first or whatever, but the idea is there was a little bit of pressure in that trade, and that's because the filter is still sloping downwards here, so there's still some buying pressure. You might have stood aside in the one, or if you're a little braver on that trade, you might have grabbed it if you had some other things you're looking at telling you to go along. So now we're watching to see what the next trade setup is. As you can see, we got a sell channel opening up and the whipsaw's going nuts. Now there are a few trade rules with Boomerang, very, very simple, and that is called what are called the fat channels, which I'll talk about when we get to one of those, and the whipsaw periods. All of those are discussed extensively on my blog at boomerangtrader.com under the resource section, how to avoid congestion and whipsaw. Some ideas in there. But let's get back into the method here. Here's a sell channel, little whipsaw coming in, matching dynamic trend bands. They're changing color here, and we're below the sloping down filter. If it's sloping down, that's a good sign for a lower move. And we got a flat filter up here. So combined together, it looks good to go short. Here's a short there at 26, which collapses immediately down 5 ticks and gives us our 5 ticks on that deal. And then as we go over here, let me move this a little. I like to keep the charts open nice and wide. We don't want to hide anything from you. There's no point in that. We just want to show you exactly what's going on. Here's a buy channel opening up. The dynamic trends bands are matching. They're trading in general on this flat line here, and there's still kind of a down slope on the other filter here. So as we get, you're better off when this is flattening out, and right here is where they flatten out. If you got long here or there, there's no real problem, but the idea is that this would have been the best choice, because with the prices have now lifted up above this filter and this filter is flattened out. So you get long here, and there's a little pressure on the entry 26 coming down to 23, about 3-4 ticks pressure, and then 26 shoots up to 05 for 5 ticks. Just a couple trades a day is all you need. If you get on the right side with Boomerang, you can manage a good paycheck to dig a good paycheck out of that. So opening up here, the market had ramped up on Globex, so we're now looking for a sell channel, but the opening's more around here. And this is where these filters come in real handy, because you can see the prices are trying to move up, but they're in a whipsaw mode here. Nothing to do here, just watching. Had this been a little less whipsaw here and they pulled back, I could have showed you another trade setup that occurs. And when we get to one of those, I'll describe that to you. But let me check something out here. The way it works, well, if I find one, I'll show you. It gives you an option of taking a pullback to the Cobra if all the pullbacks to the signal line are used up after an exact crossover of the dynamic trend bands. But I'll show you that when we get to it. So no trade here, no matching dynamic trend bands, no crossover to way up there. So we're just watching for the next setup. And here goes a sell channel. Matching dynamic trend bands on the buy side. Now we've got dynamic trend band number 1 is the bearish color. And right here, they start to blink to the magenta color here. You got a flat filter here. And on the upside, it's relatively flat up here. Prices below the upper filter at this point. They're trading right here. Below the upper filter, which is flattening, and a flat filter here. A pullback to the signal line. 28 drops right down to 22 for 5 ticks, and no pressure on the stop. Now again, this one you probably would be able to get into it, and especially after you've gotten real used to using Boomerang, you become experienced with it. It becomes kind of second nature. At first, you're looking at it, it's like, wow, there's some discretion there. Of course, it's not an automated system. And frankly, I don't think you want an automated system. I don't really believe in them. I've been looking for one that really, really works for a long time, and I've never found one. So I just believe in good old hard work and what I call a blue-collar working trader. That's the slogan I like to use, and I believe in that. Go to work, use your brains and your wit and your intelligence and your experience in futures trading. Get on the right side of the market with Boomerang and knock out a few trades, and then take the day off. That's why we trade, right? To work a couple hours and take the rest of the day off with a nice paycheck. So here's a new candle opening, forming a new buy channel. See that arrow there? It locks down. We finished the 450 ticks, and now we're watching for what? A little quiz for you. That's right, we're watching for matching dynamic trend bands. That's the core method. Once we have that, we simply measure if prices are in an uptrend above this orange thin line and above this dashed one, especially slightly sloping up, and we're above this flattening thin line here with them even crossing over. So you can go ahead and buy this pullback right here at the signal line at 165.00, and they shoot up to 9. 8. So good 8 tick move there, blasting right up, right when the boomerang signals all lined up. You get instant satisfaction and no pressure on the stop, which is the greatest part about boomerang. So often there's no pressure on the stop. Sometimes there is, of course, and you're going to get stopped out once in a while, but if you line them up right using our new filter and the dynamic trend bands, real simple setup, you'll do very well, I expect. This is after hours, but you can see matching dynamic trend bands, pull back the signal line and a flat crossing over, dashed crossing over the thin line here, and down they come. Selling off in Globex and then reopening around this time the next day. I'll try to speed up on the setups, but I want to take my time because this is our very important core 30-year bond videotape, so I want to make sure you have that. All right, real simple though. It's the same old routine. A buy channel opens, matching dynamic trend bands, a flat to slightly up core filter, the dash line, with the other part of the filter crossing under that. So flattening, crossing under. The trend bands are matching on this candle and this candle and this candle. So technically you'd want to trade them, and the price are pushing up above the filter here. So you'd want to buy this pullback here at 27, or maybe you got them over here at 29. Either way, 29 shoots up 5 ticks to 64.06. And you got another nice trade there. Now here's a second level trade coming in. Now a second level trade to qualify has to have a counter arrow that whipsaws the other side a little bit and tries to push the prices back the other way. You have to have an arrow. You have to have it locked down. Now you don't necessarily have to have a yellow dot on the arrow or even a second yellow dot or anything counter to the move on the candle, but just a candle that locks down and finishes the 450 ticks. Then when it produces a counter, and it's not a sell trade obviously because you got matching bullish dynamic trend bands left over from this move, but if you get that opposite arrow, now you get a new fresh buy channel opening up here and locking down. You can immediately buy the next pullback to the signal line because you've already got matching dynamic trend bands, and you got the when the trend bands, the dash line crosses under this, it's an initial move, and when they start trending in a stronger way, the thin line, the solid thin line, will cross the dash line. It's just a way to read the filter. So here they go, they're trending up now. You buy that pull back to the signal line here at 02, and they shoot straight up for 6 ticks there. Before the market closes, it looks like we got, and these trade around the clock practically. They trade Sunday through Friday from 5 p.m. Chicago time to 4 p.m. So it's kind of a 23-hour contract. So you can always go in and pick off trades on Boomerang on the bonds. This is a real obvious one here. New channel, selling down, all dynamic trend bands and a crossover. Pull back the signal line, 27 clearly runs down 5 ticks. Here again, a second level channel. Now this one had a little more teeth to it, so a second level channel comes in here, really tries to force that price the other way, but it does not influence the dynamic trend band number 2, which is still sloping very steeply to the downside. So you're just waiting for and the filter is steeply sloping down here, and our other filter is scooping under the price a little bit, still sloping down. So the filters are telling you no way would you want to buy this trade, and it's not setting up on the dynamic trend bands. But then you get the sell channel opening up again, so you already got the DTBs matching right here, so boom, you hit them right there. 163 even, and down they come for 5 ticks. And then again another these are Globex trades. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the time. This second level trade here was after the market had closed. This was the last trade, and then the market closed. These are Globex trades here. I could actually show you on Globex here, winning trades coming in on the same matching dynamic trend bands above the filter, and this filter here kind of flattening out, so you get a nice entry there, and up they go for 5 ticks. Now the market's been open. It's been trading well. Here, same thing, second level trade. That arrow comes in and closes, and this time we had a second dot on the signal line there, but certainly is not a trade because you're matching bullish dynamic trend bands. So you buy that pullback, the signal line here at 29. 29 runs up to 02. So you got a little turbulence here. Let me open this up. This is a good example. We want a little turbulence once in a while just so we can make sure and understand how everything works. You're buying this pullback signal line at 29. They shoot up to 02. So that's 29, 30, 31, even. Well, I think it's 5 ticks there. 4 or 5 ticks if you missed it by a tick. And then you're still long at 29, holding for an 8-tick stop. 29 comes to 27, then blasts higher, giving you your 5 ticks. So it still ended up panning out beautifully. And again, choppy markets here on Globex, nothing to do, nothing to do. There's where they're opening here. I can speed up just a little bit here. Matching dynamic trend bands, sloping down filter and flat filter up here. Perfect. Sell them there at 25. 25 drops them straight down. So you can see so far we've had all winning trades on Boomerang Day Trader on the bonds on these still charts here. Now keep in mind, the still charts are equally as good as, when it's running live, obviously it's a little more hyper and exciting, but the still charts, if the price got stopped out, the bars and candles would be down here. They're not. They're higher. And as I mentioned earlier, once this price trades at the signal line, that dot prints and it's permanent on the chart. It's not going to disappear, and it's not going to disappear after 6 months or 1 month or 3 weeks. Or it's telling you that price went there in time and sales, absolutely. So you can count on Boomerang and the method to understand what you want to do with the trades. Now here, unfortunately, this looked like a beauty, right? For a buy trade, the problem was this first filter was okay as prices moved up against there. This one is still sloping down, and this is what we talked about earlier. It's still sloping down, so it's a little bit questionable, but sure enough, right as they pushed above this main filter here, the dash line, they kind of took off like a rocket ship and never gave us an entry. Now, one of the rules, and it doesn't show up here, but one of the rules is if this happens, all the signal line pullbacks are used up and you get an exact crossover, you can count like up to 4, maybe 5 candles if you're stretching it from the exact crossover. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if, in many cases there was a pullback to the Cobra, you then use the Cobra as your entry. So that's one of our modification rules. It's talked about in the webinars that I do on the Boomerang blogs, and you can hear about it there. Nothing to do here. Let's roll to the next session here. Here's a sell signal matching dynamic trend bands, flat to lower, flat here, perfect. Sell them at the market, 5 ticks. No stop out so far. Watching here for everything to scoop on up. Here's the crossover. They just rocket ship to the moon there. There's no trade. They didn't give us a pullback signal line, unfortunately. No trade there. Looking for a sell channel coming in here. Dynamic trend band lights up on the bear side, and the price start dropping. And the problem is here is they didn't change colors till here. And if you can see here, this is really important. Now this second filter here is scooping the prices, so they're below the filter. That's good. We need it to be flat, and we need them to be under here. Now, you could have maybe fudged and went short here, but it is a little bit of a fudge because you got to have the dynamic trend bands crossing over or matching color, you see. And it's getting late in the session, so again, I can promise you this with experience of using Boomerang. You've been using Boomerang month, 2 months, 3 months, you'll be able to fudge in some of these without a problem because you'll have the filters telling you that it looks good for that lower move. But for now, just stick with the rules. Follow the rules. You'll get plenty of good trades. You've seen so far we've had all winners over the last 10 sessions I've been going over, so why push it, you know? It's so easy when you follow the rules. Buy channel, matching dynamic trend bands, pull back the signal line, and up they go for 5 ticks. Zero pressure on the entry. Crossover of the dashed over the solid filter. Solid filter flattening out, but they've already crossed over, so that's a good sign. And the prices are above this filter. It's just telling you that this thing is ready to go higher. You buy them and they go up 5 ticks. Crossover here, lots of whipsaw coming in here. All these trading markets have whipsaw. Crossover buy channel with the whipsaw up, whipsaw down. Now we've already got the dynamic trend bands crossed over, right? So that means the next sell channel that prints a dot on the second candle can be taken. The reason is when the markets are whipsawing and moving around quickly and there's a sell channel opening here, you might see a signal dot on the pullback signal line like on this candle, and that's just because the algorithms are trading, everything's moving at milliseconds, and it appears that the signal for the candle opening isn't going to lock down until the candle close. That's why our rule that you don't trade a pullback signal line on the same as a candle. We got to let that candle close to see what's going to happen on the next one. And you can see on the next one, because of the whipsaw, it counter created a buy candle with a blue dot on it. Don't worry about it. We're in a sell mode. Prices are below a flattening filter here, and we got a steep down sloping secondary filter. So this thing's good to go on the downside. All we need is what? A little quiz for you. That's right. We need a candle, an arrow for a sell channel to close and lock down, finish up the 450 ticks, and then we need to pull back to the signal line right here at 25 and knock them down to 20 or lower. There's 5 ticks right there. Now, if you didn't catch 5 ticks there, then they shot up 1 tick against the entry here and then finally gave you the 5 ticks. And you can even create a little rule like we do for crude oil. I tell people on crude oil, 8 to 10 ticks, because maybe your entry was a tick off, something happened, the price were moving a little fast right when you got in. Whatever it is, the idea is you're just going in there and picking off on crude oil that $80 to $100 bill per contract. Same with the bonds. 5 ticks, as you've seen, normally is going to show up, and a lot more in many cases. But you measure that from the entry and just use common sense and say, if they go 4 ticks, I'm going to clip them. I'm looking for 5, but sometimes you may find they'll go. This happens to me in the live trading room all the time. I'm telling everybody, okay, we want 43 and a quarter, 43 and a quarter, and they go 43 half, half, half. Sometimes they'll even hit quarter and won't clear it, and they'll bounce back. So, as an experienced futures trader, you should know that that's the way the mop flops in this game. Not even sometimes, but frequently. It's just part of the game. You try to pick your best price, but just work your deal. You'll find with all these winning signals on Boomerang that you should have plenty of opportunity. Just adapt yourself to the Boomerang winning system, and you'll find that things work really good for you. Matching dynamic trend bands, a lot of whipsaw coming in here. Clearly, we have a crossover with bullish matching dynamic trend bands. We want to buy. Here's a candle opening the buy channel. It locks down. A pullback signal line comes in at 25, and they shoot straight up at the peak. They go all the way up to about 10 ticks higher. 10 ticks, 11 ticks higher, I believe. Beautiful move. 5 ticks is all you want. Take your 5 ticks. And then this is coming into the close of Friday's session, 10:21. Again, waiting for sell channel, which we got. But this is officially, and I haven't discussed this yet. It's in the rules. It's on the videos we talk about. This is called a fat channel, where you get 3 or 4 candles that are really huge, just spiking in one direction, like here, and like here is classic. This is a super classic fat channel. You'd never trade a signal line down here at the bottom of this thing. Most of these are going to reverse, and it's coming in the later part of the session. But the point is, even here, it's kind of a fat channel. You got to be a little bit careful. And if you're really committed to the sell side, because you see the crossover coming in here, what you can do always is, this is where that rule is, using the trade signal line to enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candles here, and say you determine that was a fat channel, but then you see them exactly crossing over here. You can work a trade at the Cobra there as your secondary signal line. You don't want to sell or buy dot on there. It's for the signal line, but once you know the method, then you can work the Cobra, and there was another good trade there. And that's it for the session there. You're coming into close, and that's what happened during that 10 sessions. You can see I didn't actually count them. I probably should have. I'll go back and do that when I put this on YouTube and put the notes on there, which I'll have available on my YouTube channel, which is Boomerang Trader on YouTube. You'll see it there. We got a lot of trade examples for Boomerang, but I'll put this up there as well, and I'll note how many winners there were. They're all winners. There was not one single stop loss during this period from 10 to 10:21. So that's 100% winning trades on the still charts. Look, in live and real time, we know emotions come in there. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's discretion. There's a lot of different factors, but you can see that if you just line yourself up with the Boomerang system and these high percentage winning trades, you're going to do pretty good, I imagine, if you got the skill and you put in the time and the practice. So I really want to thank you for joining with me today on this video, and feel free to email me anytime at mohan@daytradersaction.com if you have any questions. So thanks again for joining us.